Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I want to do another character book recommendation video. I've been enjoying doing those, but I thought we would focus on a character from an animated film, specifically a Japanese animated film, specifically a Studio Ghibli film, because I like anything Hayao Miyazaki makes. My favorite films happen to be Spirited Away, but also Howl's Moving Castle. So I thought today we would focus on this guy, aka the lead, aka Howl from Howl's Moving Castle. Now, just a reminder, there's going to be spoilers for Howl and his movie, Howl's Moving Castle. I'm going to assume you've all watched it, and then I'm going to recommend some books to you today based off of the character traits I love in Howl, but I'm going to try not to spoil the books themselves because I want you to read them. I'm just going to say the very bare minimum information I can about the characters to get you interested, so that hopefully you pick up the books for yourself. Now, I'm not going to talk about every trait Howl has. I'm just going to talk about 5 or 6 traits that make him stand out to me and are the top reasons why I love Howl and why a lot of people love Howl. So the first reason I like Howl is because he seems to be a perfect balance of introvert-extrovert. Now, I am an introvert. I know all the advantages, but I also am aware of the advantages of being an extrovert and are jealous of characters that can be comfortable and confident in an extroverted state of being. Now, this is just a reminder that just because people are introverts doesn't mean they can't do extroverted things, and just because people are extroverts doesn't mean they can't do introverted things. To me, it just means that if you're an introvert, you're just more comfortable being by yourself, and you get more energy being by yourself, or with people you care about that you're really close to. And if you're an extrovert, you're just more comfortable and get more energy being around lots of people you don't necessarily know, and interacting with people a lot of the time. So to me, as an introvert, I think that being able to be by myself, being comfortable there, getting energy from being there, enjoying being by myself means that obviously I take more time to do so. I have more practice being by myself, which means I spend more time with my own thoughts and emotions, which means I find it's a little easier for me to be self-aware, I find. And with the help of therapy, even faster at being self-aware of what's going on in my mind and my emotions. And that greatly helps with processing what's going on in my life and helping to take next steps that I think align more with what I'm thinking and feeling. Whereas an extrovert, I think advantages of being an extrovert is if you're more comfortable and confident being around people, you're going to have more opportunity to build interpersonal relationships. And as a social species, we need other people in order to share information. There's lots of advantages of being around people and being with people. And if you're an extrovert and you thrive for those moments, you're super confident and comfortable being around people and building relationships, you're going to have more connections and opportunities to take advantage of what other people can offer you. Again, just a reminder, just because you are an extrovert or just an introvert doesn't mean you can't do the things the other person's doing. I just argue that you're probably going to be better at the things you're most comfortable and confident doing. So for Howl, there's a rumor going around that he eats women's hearts. So we know that people see him with women a lot. So to me, that seems like he purposefully enjoys going out and meeting new people regularly. So that hints to me, extrovert. But I also see in the movie him take many moments to go off by himself, to practice his magic, and to think about everything going on in his life. And both those have advantages. So by him being comfortable and purposeful and going out to meet people, he has lots of connections he can use when trying to curry favor in the kingdom or get maybe ingredients for his potions and all that kind of stuff. And by him being comfortable going off by himself, he limits the distractions in his life and is able to focus on his magic and also focus on what's going on with him, because there's a lot going on with Howl in this movie because there's a war going on. He's being asked to fight in this war. He's also got his own business going on where he's making potions and selling potions and magical items and whatnot. He's also got personal issues going on because he is separated from his heart and is slowly losing his humanity. So he's got a lot to process. And by being comfortably being by himself and taking the time to try to understand what's going on in his mind and body, he can hopefully better pick his next steps to help solve his problems. Another character that seems to have a nice balance of introvert extrovert states of being would be Finnick Odair from the Hunger Games. He is first off presented as, and he's known in the capital as, a very charming Casanova type, very likable, very desirable by a lot of people. You do find out later on that the Casanova part of his identity is not really his choice, but more like a survival mechanism he is forced to adapt in order to curry favor in the right places. But we do see him use his charm to build connections, make people like him, make people probably maybe want to be on his side rather than against him, which are all advantages when trying to survive a fight to the death in the Hunger Games. But we do also see Finnick choose and seemingly benefit from going off on his own, especially after big traumatic events happen, big battles, as they are in a war. It seems to help bring him down somewhat from heightened states, because obviously during battles and in war, you're constantly forced in heightened states because there's lots of violence going around you, lots of heightened stimuli, lots of heightened emotions, and going off by yourself is one way to limit the stimuli, limit the things going on around you, so that you can try to bring your mind and body and emotions back to at least a slightly lower state. So we see him comfortable and confident to enter each one of those states of being comfortable entering an introverted state and an extroverted state, and receiving the benefits that both of those ways of being bring you. And there's Rhysand from the ACOTAR series. Now I know that's a series that's either loved or hated by a lot of people. I personally only own the second book, which is A Court of Mist and Fury, because it is the only book I would reread. I find it's a nice balance of romance and action in that one. But Rhysand in the whole series, especially in the first book, he's introduced as quite charming. He seems very comfortable and confident in his ability to antagonize those he wants to stay away from or wants them to stay away from him, but to charm those that he wants to build connections with. All for his own goals and also for the interests and goals of those that control him, in the first book anyway. So we see that he has that skill set, comfort and confidence being around people. And although we don't get to see Rhysand have too many moments alone, which I guess is understandable, because one, in the first book, he had no choice. He wasn't able to do whatever he wanted. And then in the second and third book, he is the leader of a nation during a war, so there's lots to do. A lot of extroverted things demanded of him, but we do see him choose moments to be at least quiet moments with those he cares about a lot, which is part of being an introvert. Introvert's not always preferring to be alone, but preferring to either be alone or around people you are very comfortable with, so that you can recharge in a very safe, comfortable setting with people you trust. And we do see Rhysand do that. And in those states, I find I do see him recharge, regroup, process a lot of what's going on by sharing the load with those he cares about, talking about it with those he cares about. So he is one character I see take advantage of introvert, extrovert tendencies. Bryce Quinlan from the Crescent City series by Sarah J. Maas. I would recommend Bryce as well, because we do see her use her charm to get people to trust her enough to share information with her that she wants, or to participate in some sort of activity with her that gets her closer to her goal. Her and her roommate are literally known as party girls, so she seems to thrive and live for moments going out with her friends, going to clubs, all the things that would bring an extrovert tons of energy. But we do also see Bryce purposefully choose activities and moments by herself where she can process everything that's going on. In book one, she often goes for runs. She chooses to do her runs after very emotional scenes that she has. So definitely seems as though when she is forced into heightened emotional states, that running is an introverted, solitary activity she uses to help cope and process everything that just happened to her. So again, another character that seems very confident, comfortable, and gets energy from being extroverted around people and being introverted with herself. Another reason I like this guy is because he's a very powerful wizard and magic user. Again, this goes back to my competency trait that I liked in Wednesday as well, in my Wednesday video. I like it when a character has one or two things they're really good at. I don't really like a character that's good at everything. That's not believable to me. But when one character is like they're one of the best in the field at what they do, I love that trait in a character. And for Howl, it's wizarding. He's a very powerful wizard. His whole business is around him being a very powerful wizard that can sell things to people. We often see him use this magic, this thing he's really good at, to make his life easier in many ways, with all his little potions and enchanted brooms and objects in his castle. But one thing that's really cool about Howl with this competency trait that I tend to like in characters is he's an example of a character that has this power, this great competency, but we don't see him use the ultimate upper echelons of this power very often, like maybe once or twice. Sure, he's got like enchanted brooms and little potions and stuff, but that's like minor. That's on the lower part of the scale of powerful wizard, of his power. He's operating down here most of the time with his power. So when he finally operates up here to his full capability, it's so much more satisfying. So one character I absolutely love for this exact reason, and probably one of the top recommendations I can give you, is Iroh from the Avatar series, the Avatar The Last Airbender series. So Iroh, again, everybody talks about him being the Dragon of the West, was a former great military Fire Nation general, was heir to the throne, one of the most powerful firebenders there ever was. And most of the time we see him use it to make tea. Again, love that about him, but I was itching to see this power, this great power of this great man. Finally, towards the end of the series, when he participates in the final battle, he uses the full capabilities of his skill and his competency as a firebender to help fight. So again, when that finally happened, very satisfying. Another character that, again, is communicated throughout the series as one of the most powerful characters would be Hiruzen from Naruto. Naruto the manga, Naruto the show. He is the third Hokage, who is the current Hokage in the beginning of the Naruto series. And again, as Hokage, that means he's one, if not the most powerful, strongest ninja in the Hidden Leaf Village. I watched the show before I read the manga when I was a kid. I remember watching and waiting to see this great leader be strong, and it didn't happen until in a later arc in the series. The contrast made it extra powerful because he was presented in the beginning as this old man. He seemed fairly quiet and reserved, seemingly purposefully slow moving. He had a presence. I never thought he was weak, but it was just not what I expected of this great, powerful, greatest ninja there ever was. But again, in a later arc, when he has his big final battle, we see him unleash a lot of his power. It was very satisfying. Another thing I like about Howl is how he starts off very much a coward, and then he learns to be brave by the end of the story. Now that's a pretty common area of character growth. So I could recommend a lot of characters, but the way Howl grew in this particular way, from coward to brave, was very interesting to me. Like in the beginning, he even admits he's a coward, which you don't see as often. I read a lot of books where a character is cowardly but doesn't like to admit it. Howl admits it right off the bat. He even says, "I'm such a big coward, all I do is hide. All of this magic is to keep everybody away. I can't stand how scared I am." So he admits he's a coward, and he admits he uses his magic purposely to keep people from becoming too close to him. There's a war going on. He runs away from participating in the war on either side. He's afraid of the consequences because he knows he's been seeing other wizards fight in the king's war, just like the king wants Howl to do. And he sees they're turning themselves into monsters to help fight in the war, and he does not want that to happen to him. He fears losing control. I can relate. I also fear losing control. I'm a very anxious person, and part of anxiety is wanting to control things. That's what makes me anxious. I want to have more control over things than I actually can, which just makes me worry and just makes me anxious. It's a losing battle, really. But we actually see Howl, we see his fear in losing control when just a minor thing happens in the movie, when Sophie reorganizes his potions, and then when he goes to use some of them because she moved his potions around, he uses the wrong one and dyes his hair from blonde to black, and he throws a temper tantrum because of it. This one small moment, he lost control. He thought he had control over where his potions were and how he would use them and how his hair would turn out. And then all at once, he didn't. And his hair turned out a way he didn't want it to turn. He lost control. He throws a temper tantrum right in front of Sophie. But then now we got Sophie in the picture. And Sophie is part of the reason he is pushed to become braver, because she doesn't stand for his temper tantrum. She forces him to face his problems and challenges him to step forward towards his fears more than stepping back. We start to see Howl becoming braver when he finally accepts he doesn't have to do everything alone. He can accept help. He can accept help from Sophie. And by doing so, she helps him break his contract, allows him to get his heart back, allows him to get his humanity back. And in so doing, he starts being able to take more control over his own life. We also see Howl's bravery become even stronger when he acknowledges that he cares for Sophie. He's let her in, he's let her get close to him, and because now he really cares for her, he's got somebody else to live for, he takes more action to stand up for what he believes in and protect those he loves. So some characters that I've read that have also experienced this growth from being a coward, having lots of fear, to becoming a braver person. One would be the boy from The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse by Charlie Mackesy. I very much enjoyed this book. The entire premise is this boy is wandering around and interacting with these various animal creatures. And from each one, they have discussions about what they feel, about their emotions, about how to be in the world. Just the fact that he's able to express his fears and ask for help from all these animals and ask for advice is a courage in itself. So part of his growth was thinking he's a coward and in the end realizing he's been brave all along because he's doing brave things. He just didn't know it yet. It's brave to be vulnerable. It's brave to ask for help because people could hurt you, betray you. So it is an act of bravery. And the boy also struggles with feeling ordinary. And also by the end, he's able to accept and find comfort in being one flawed human among a world of flawed humans and flawed creatures. And that there is bravery in the ability to accept yourself for who you are. There's also Liesel from The Book Thief. She also goes from a very fearful place, justifiably so, because she is an orphan in World War II Germany. And she has to learn to trust new people in her life to protect her and raise her. And as a book thief in Nazi Germany, by stealing the books she steals, these are seemingly small but actually very big acts of bravery in a society where book burnings were occurring on a regular basis and Nazis did not want you reading. We see Liesel show compassion for a man that Nazi Germany did not want anyone showing compassion for during the time. So again, another act of bravery on her part. And the last big reason I like Howl, it's actually not just on Howl this time. When I was thinking about it, the relationship he has with Sophie is another reason I like Howl. The growth he experiences while interacting and growing with Sophie was what it was because they did it together. So his growth that he undertook by having the care and support of Sophie was a reason I liked Howl. Their relationship made them both stronger and more well-rounded characters. We see Howl's narcissism and self-destruction tendencies lessen after finally finding someone who he let in long enough to care for him and for him to care for her. His love for her is stronger than his desire for self-preservation. Sophie literally helps Howl get his humanity back and retain his humanity by giving him back his heart, finding and breaking the contract that kept his heart away from him. And Sophie saw Howl for who he really was when he wasn't able or willing to see it for himself. He didn't believe he was necessarily a good person, but she saw him and showed him who she saw him as. And that was a man who was trying to do the right thing in a world bent on war and violence. And for Howl, as part of their relationship and their growth that they did together, he helped Sophie step outside her comfort zone, help her regain her confidence, and find a purpose in her life that she connects with. Because we saw Sophie before in the hat shop. She was not very self-confident. She saw no other life other than the hat shop, even though it didn't bring her joy. Howl helped her, supported her on her own journey to discover this for herself. I'm not arguing that they fixed each other. That's not a healthy relationship. What I saw here was Howl and Sophie on their own individual journeys, and by taking time to support each other on those independent journeys, they were able to grow in their own unique ways, but they're still growing together because it is through their relationship and support and care for each other that they're able to grow the way they did. So some characters I can recommend that also grew stronger because of their relationship with another character. I could recommend a lot of romance books, but I only wanted to pick the very best in my eyes, ones where I felt that they were, again, showing a relationship that the characters grew independently. They had their own journeys. They had their own ways that they needed to grow for themselves, not for somebody else. They didn't grow for the other person. They wanted to grow for themselves, and the other person just offered them support and opportunity to take chances, opportunity to grow in the ways that that character wanted. So one would be Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice. This one's probably a really great example I can pick because Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy spent most of the book independently growing. They weren't even in a relationship. They just interacted with each other and challenged each other to see themselves differently, help them get past their own pride, if you will, and their own prejudices, if you will, so that they can see who they are, see who they want to be, and find steps to get there. And that they both would try to offer advice and opportunities to help the other grow, help the other get closer to that. And it was only after this growth that their relationship was able to deepen. I'd also recommend Nina and Matthias from the Six of Crows series because they are forced to interact with each other in the beginning for a while. Matthias has major prejudices against magic users like Nina, which automatically has him hating her. And again, by these two challenging each other, they're each able to take their own steps to grow as characters. And in the end, Nina learns to put her own selfish goals aside for a greater cause that she agrees to participate in, a greater cause going on in the world of Six of Crows. And Matthias learns how to scrutinize the greater cause he's been a part of to ensure that indeed it was for the greater good and didn't hurt people he cared about. So they were each challenged to see the world differently and their part in it differently. And by doing so, they were able to grow as individuals and grow together. I'd also recommend Emma and Justin from Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I just read this book. I've tried Abby Jimenez's books before, and I rated them mostly 2 or 3 stars. Was not really working for me. But this book, finally, I rated at least 4 stars. So I finally got an Abby Jimenez book that worked for me. And part of the reason it worked for me is because the two love interests had their own areas of growth that they needed to undertake, and they undertook them individually with support from one another. And the way that they supported each other was unique, and the way that they each needed to grow was unique. Emma, the female main character, had to learn how to put herself first sometimes and put healthy boundaries in her life, and Justin helped support her in that. And Justin had to learn how to practice taking other people's perspectives and giving people grace, because life is hard and some people cope better than others. And so what they each did for each other and how they each grew was a very satisfying story arc for me and would make me want to pick this book up again. I'd also recommend Jamie and Mika from A Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sango Mandana, because the female main character, Mika, she struggled feeling as though she was worthy of belonging and finding somewhere she belonged. And Jamie, the male romantic interest, had to learn how to trust and open up to more people in his life than the small little group he's holding on with white-knuckled hands. And through them both meeting and being around each other and working towards their own goals, they each challenge each other to grow in these areas that they struggle in. And it was very sweet. It was definitely a very cozy romance. I'm not really usually into cozy fantasy, but the romance in this one was done well, so I would reread this one. It was good. I highly recommend it. And then there's Poppy and Alex from People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. My favorite Emily Henry book. This was also really satisfying. The growth that these two characters underwent because of how they challenge each other. Poppy is very much what we'd call the extrovert type. She likes traveling. Her job is literally travel writing. She doesn't really want to settle down. Whereas Alex, the male love interest, he's a teacher and he prefers having a quiet life with more stability in it. But because they come back together finally and they learn to accept the other for who they are and they learn that Alex there are some things he likes that he actually can enjoy about putting yourself out there, and Poppy learns that there are things that she can enjoy about being more stable. And they don't entirely cave to each other's way of life. They just learn that they can enjoy intersecting their lives more than they thought they could or they would. So again, I want to emphasize with this trait, I don't like reading relationships where the characters change for each other. No. I like reading about relationships where the characters change because the other character supports them and challenges them to become who they want to be. Because so often we think we know who we want to be, but we don't think we can get there. Sometimes we just need other characters to provide opportunity and support to do so, or to challenge us to get actually closer to a realistic idea of who we want to be. And those are all the reasons I like Howl from Howl's Moving Castle. But if you liked Howl for any of the reasons I listed here today, whether it was because of the growth he experienced with his relationship with Sophie, how he went from a coward to brave, how he's a powerful wizard, or how he takes advantage of being an introverted extrovert type, then you will like the characters I recommended to you today. I want to end with the question I always ask because I am very curious what books stand out to you. So if in the comments there is a character I told you about today or a book I told you about today that intrigued you, that you think you would check out or put on your TBR, if you could let me know, that'd be great. I experience great satisfaction when I can accurately recommend a book to somebody that speaks to them. And with that, I'm going to sign off, work at editing this video, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.